Well, here we are at the shop today, looking at all the beautiful audio equipment that we have here at LeGrand Stereo and Music. Today, I am lucky enough to get to work on this beautiful thing. Yes, that says Gibson, and yes, the case is brown, and yes, it still has this dreaded back latch. They want to make sure this case doesn't come open. A student of mine brought this guitar in and just wants a setup on it, and apparently there's a problem with the pickup selector switch, so we'll take a look and feast your eyes on this pretty beautiful guitar. Look at the top on that. That is just, it's stunning. He takes very good care of his guitars. He keeps them nice and clean. Frets look real good. No noticeable wear. We'll do a polish job on these frets, make them nice and shiny, knock the dust off, put some new strings on it, check the pickup height. It looks like this rear pickup is a little close to the strings here, so we'll have to adjust that. And let's see what's going on with this. Oh yeah, the pickup selector switch is loose, so we'll have to tighten that down and look at a couple tools that we might use today on this project. Let's check we have push-pull pots, so we'll check all the electronics, make sure everything's working correctly, no clicks or buzzes or dings or anything like that. Looks like we have coil tap and probably phase on this. I'm not sure of the controls. It's going to have a circuit board and all kinds of stuff in there. This is a 2016, I believe, Les Paul Standard. Really cool guitar. Beautiful guitar. It smells. I can still smell that Gibson smell off of this thing. I'm a little biased about Gibsons. I have a couple. So we'll get this thing set up on the bench here and get to work on this. Hang in there. Well, folks, welcome back. I have already repaired this pickup selection switch and did a run through on the guitar with respect to the electronics, and everything's working great on this thing. No clicks or buzzes or beeps when you turn the knob, so that's great news. So what I'm about to do is pull the strings off and do a check on this neck and the truss rod, make sure everything's working. Put a little oil on the truss rod nut. It's always a good idea. Truss rods need to be turned incrementally. They shouldn't be just turned every several years when you might think about it. They need to be turned ever so often to keep them lubed and make sure that they're still doing their job. So we'll get to doing that here fairly quickly. This has the beautiful Sperzel self-locking tuners, string locks. The guy who invented these is a genius, and he deserves a Nobel Prize for making string changes as quick as possible. Pretty incredible design here. Notice that string is pinching in this nut slot, so we'll probably open that up a bit. And I've used this eraser here to avoid having the tailpiece on this Les Paul fall off and dent the finish on the guitar. And we're gonna see, and these have locks on them. They're little Allen keys on these that need to be turned. So I'm gonna loosen those up and get this tailpiece off of here, and we'll continue. Okay, well, we've gotten the strings off of this beautiful Les Paul, and right in this area of the guitar, you'll notice there's a little scratch that comes across these strings, or the frets board, the fingerboard. And that's things that we look for when we initially get into these guitars. Make sure that the customer knows that their guitar was damaged. I called my customer and he was unaware that the guitar had any damage, but it looks like the guitar had been knocked over maybe in a guitar stand and slid across something, you know, the corner of a table, or it's really hard saying what happened here. It almost looks like in the old days when guys would scrape their guitars across a mic stand, that a mic stand bit this thing, but there's no damage on the frets at all that I can see, so it's an interesting little find. We're not going to do anything with that. We're just going to leave it and call it a day. But also notice that this fretboard is really dry, so we're going to definitely give that an oil, and we'll polish these frets. And I am just at the point of pulling these screws off the truss rod, and we'll check make sure that the truss rod still works. So we'll be right back with that, and we'll get the dust knocked off this headstock. You can see where you can get your finger in there to clean a little bit of the dust off, but under the strings it's really hard to get at. You need to invent something so that can be cleaned real easily. So we've gotten the strings off of this bad boy, and just checking for making sure the fingerboard is perfectly level. And right out here in the middle, I'm seeing a little bit of a gap in this, so I'm going to do a polish on these frets. I measured the string action, or the neck relief, here at the 5th fret, right here at the 5th fret, and I found it to be about 10/1000ths of an inch, which I prefer 12/1000ths on a Les Paul, especially with frets this tall. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the truss rod and get that neck as flat as possible. And I have our specialized Gibson Truss Rod Wrench, which is a 5/16 on most Les Pauls. But oftentimes they make it real difficult to get the wrench on there. But this one's going. I've oiled the truss rod, so I need this fretboard to raise in the middle slightly. So I'm going to tighten this truss rod, and it is moving perfectly and looks really good. And with that fretboard, I moved this truss rod literally from here, and we'll take a look, and we can see some light.
Yeah.
And
are you talking to me?
No.
Oh, sorry.
My
you want me to take my shirt off?
Yes. Let's get some. So you can see there's a little tiny gap underneath that fret measuring device to make sure that thing is flat, and just in turning it that small amount, we have flattened that fretboard out to perfectly flat. So that's how we roll. We want everything as accurate and perfect as we can get. So here we are back on task, and we are polishing frets today. Starting at 600, working up to 15, going to 2000. What's going on?
Start recording.
That's cool.
Where's the...
Just giving them a nice polish, making them nice and shiny. What's going on, Mike?
Nothing. Keep working. Carry on.
Well, here we are back, gotten done polishing the frets with a 2000 grit sandpaper, and just kind of finishing them off with a little metal polish. And I'm just hitting this first fret, and you can already see how much stuff comes off of those frets with just one wipe of this stuff. So there's a lot of residue left, and a lot of guys won't take this step when they do fret work. They just leave the dust and stuff on the rosewood on the frets. And I try and do 3 or 4 at a time, and then use a paper towel to wipe the excess liquid from the Never Dull off of the frets. And this is the final touch that just makes these things really shine.
Hey, Marshall.
Hey, how you doing, Terry?
Okay, whatever happened to the black Talman that I brought in here?
It's up on the wall right now. I am going to.
Oh, it must be up here.
Yeah, up on the.
There it is.
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to pull that down. Probably throw some new strings on it. Just give it a health checkup today.
All right, whatever you feel like.
All right. You want to sell a guitar? It better be a clean one, right?
Say again.
I've said if you want to sell a guitar, it ought to be clean, right?
Rumor has it. Rumor has it.
Check out this Les Paul, Terry.
The chambered?
No. No, it's...
Looks like it's
Les Paul
looks like they tried to
standard.
bookend it.
It's a Les Paul standard. I mean, it's the real deal.
Yeah, they tried to do it. They tried to do a pretty good job.
Yeah, I'm guessing about 8.5, 9 pounds on this one.
Way too heavy. This is almost as
Yeah.
bad as a Telecaster.
Yeah.
Single purpose guitars.
Oh, look at those frets, man. They just shine.
Yeah,
Easy to
it's
love.
coming to life, Marshall.
Yeah. It's fun to watch them go from what they were to what they are. Man.
absolutely.
It's incredible.
And
And these weren't even that bad, but
Anyway, Mike, I came in to see if we were okay. So
Dirty.
yeah. Aren't
Boy,
those
them
nice?
shields are sure handy, aren't they?
Yep. That's a
So I
golden
used to have to,
tool.
I used to have to take old broken old bit filler gauges and tape them on the ends, And
Yeah.
then they always rip the tape.
Yeah. Do you have a set of these?
Boy, the last one I had one of them was a brass one that I had years ago, and it didn't hold up very well.
Yeah.
The stainless wasn't really popular back in the day.
Yeah.
No,
this
no,
is the
no
thing.
was the answer to your question.
No. Okay. These things just absolutely shine now. I'm really happy with that. That looks good. Looking nice. So here we are back with this beautiful Les Paul, and we got new strings on it. Looks good. And we are checking for neck relief, and to make sure that to make sure that the relief here at the neck is appropriate for this guitar. We want 12 thousandths of an inch, and I am not going to touch that. That is perfect. As you may recall, I turned the truss rod earlier to make sure that this neck was perfectly flat while I was working on it. When I polish the frets, I like to have everything flat. And the tension of these strings pulling up on this neck has created this relief in the middle. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So it's time to tune this thing up and set the intonation. So I'm going to do a good string stretch on this, get the strings all stretched out, and make sure that they're holding tune, and then we'll check our intonation.